Sometimes I wonder about it with our own systems too. You talk about the brain drain thing's interesting. It's like, you know, we've who's the most evil person you ever studied?
That's a good one. That I've written about?
Sure.
Milosevic.
Why?
There was just something real dark about him. I struggled to see anything that I could imagine on a human level about him. With Putin, all the leaders I've written about have done evil things. Putin, Xi with the genocide in Xinjiang, their system of their justice system where they lock people up indefinitely with no due process, that disappear into the system if they cross the party wrong. Things like that are fundamentally evil to me. But Putin, you could sort of see a human side when you see videos of him interacting with ordinary Russians on campaign rallies, or his judo videos, which I've watched many times. There's a playful quality to them. He's throwing people, they're throwing him. He's interacting in a respectful way. He's laughing, he's posing for selfies. You can see that with Kim too, when he visits all the military bases and missile bases. North Koreans are weeping and he's hugging them. They're all doing selfies with him. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
You can see that to some extent with Xi, but with Milosevic, I couldn't see that part of it.
No humanity.
He was just really cold.
And you're talking, for people out there, you're talking about the Serbian leader during the 90s.
The late Slobodan Milosevic, who really led to the destruction, caused a lot of destruction when you have the destructive wars in Bosnia and Kosovo, which he really was the driver behind those. When you look at the brain drain, where in a country of 10 million people in the 90s, 200,000 college-educated Serbs left Serbia each year. Brain drains aren't good for countries. Russia's had this problem now with the Ukraine war, where 1 million Russians between the ages of 20 and 45 have left the country. They're not going back when the war ends. They're in Europe, they've plugged roots down, they have families, their kids are in school. Why would they go back?
Right.
So that's a problem. Brain drains, we've historically benefited from brain drains. 1 million Russians left in the 90s after 91 because of the collapse of their economy. And a lot of them went to the West, a lot came here. So I think in this kind of war of human talent, these things matter a lot.
Oh, for sure. Sometimes I wonder about it with our own systems too. You talk about the brain drain thing's interesting. It's like, we've created, this is a different context than what you're talking about, of course, but we created this amazing education system in this country. And now we've kind of inflated it to the point where we tell every kid they have to go to college, and every college is like overloaded and overpriced, and a degree's not worth what it used to be, and so many kids are drowning in debt and working a shitty job that they can't even keep up with their bills.
Dave Ramsey made a documentary about this that's really good.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah. But sometimes I wonder if
it's called either Stolen Futures or Borrowed Futures.
Sometimes I wonder if a part of that is like us sinking our system in on itself, and it's going to lead to a brain drain, not necessarily because people are leaving and going to other places, but because people get disillusioned with the upside of education in this country, and far fewer of us in the next generations actually get educated. Do you worry about that?
Well, that's a concern. It's a different type of, it's where they tune out. This is what happened in Japan with a whole generation of young people in the 90s and 2000s that were educated and no longer wanted to participate in the system, if you will, and would retreat and just stay in their rooms. They're called the hikikomori. And there have been books written about this. There are therapists that tried to work with, where they shut down, just didn't work, didn't go to school, and stayed in their room with no human connection. for a decade or more. So that's the risk. If the educational system isn't working for young people, you'll have people that tune out in a way that's not creative.
I think some of that's probably already happening a little bit. Maybe not at that extent, but I mean, Joe's nodding his head over here too. It's like disillusionment.
It's a social psychology phenomenon that you look at, that social psychologists study when they look at these societies. I'm not a social psychologist, but I have to, when I write about a leader to profile them, I have to understand the historical and cultural context of the society and what's happening during that time period. It's not just attaching a label to a leader and saying they're a narcissist or they're a psychopath, they're a thug. That stuff's useless. All politicians are narcissists.
I was just going to ask that.
It goes with the territory.
Yeah.
Now there are degrees of it. Some are worse than others.
Yes.
But so I think you have to look at different perspectives on it. And that's what I try to do in my work.
How much, I mean, you've mentioned today, you've talked about like social media and the forest fire that can be, and obviously the instantaneous nature of that and how it can galvanize people behind certain ideas. But how much worse is like the madness of like the crowd going to get in our society? Or do you think we're going to learn to deal with that better?
I don't know, but I hope that we'll put some guardrails around some of that with social media. People are talking about it, and there's, there could be, the companies can build in the guardrails where, it doesn't work after a certain hour for kids, things like that. You put more filters and things like that on what people can access without getting into free speech. But there are certain things that we don't want young people accessing, and because it could be potentially harmful. I think the scary thing for a lot of young people is we've seen this in the mental health field, is the terrible effects of the pandemic on socialization. Yes. And now people are coming out of that slowly, but there's a risk that there will be a subgroup of society that won't get past that. They'll be kind of forgotten or lost because they were kind of under-socialized during a key part of their growing up years.
A subgroup. I think you're being generous. I think it's more in a subgroup. I see it with adults. That was a real, like, I was in my parents' house for 3.5 years doing this job when the pandemic broke out. My job is to talk with people and have people coming in and out all the time. So in some ways, I'm very grateful for that, because I kind of was disconnected from a lot of the immediate after effects that were happening like out there, because I really just worked all the time. But when I moved up here and I would walk down the street and just see people's inability to even hold their head up when you go by them, that opened my eyes. And it's all different age groups. I mean, there's people I see every day who look down when I walk by them. I just laugh afterwards.
Wow.
Like I will even look right at them, down and away. And that is, to me, I'm sure some of that existed before the pandemic. It's just the law of averages.
We're
but
still
not
learning
at the
about.
level
We're
I'm
still
seeing.
learning. The mental health effects have certainly been profound. I and my colleagues in the psychiatric space, the psychological space, psychotherapists, our workloads are through the roof.
I can imagine.
We all have waiting lists of months, and I'm a practicing psychiatrist. I see patients every day, all week, and waiting lists all over the country. It's not just in where I live in Dallas, everywhere. And I get a lot of phone calls from people who need help.
Sure.
From the national security space that know me, people that are retired. They may have a family member or a child that needs help if they're still in the system, and they can't access the system. So I try to help them and access the system and use workarounds to help their loved ones. So it's very rewarding, but it's difficult, and we cannot train enough psychiatrists in residency programs. Even if they tripled or quadrupled in size, we still wouldn't meet the demand. So that's why we're using I work with a lot of mid-level providers, nurse practitioners, PAs. They're very good, but we can scale up more by using them. Because the pipeline to become a psychiatrist is a long pipeline. You're talking about 4 years of college, university, 4 years of med school, 4 or 5 years of residence. It's a long 12, 13-year pipeline before you're practicing. So that's the challenge in the field.
Right. So
Whereas a nurse practitioner gets a BSN, a bachelor's in nursing, 2 years, and then they get a license, they can start seeing patients. So that's an advantage, and done properly.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.